Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Brian Hite, performance psychology coach, stuntman, and author. Please enjoy Brian Hite. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm here with Brian Hite, performance psychology coach, stuntman, and author. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I am super excited to chat with you because it sounds like there is so much creativity in your world and in all of the arenas that you participate in. But before we get into that nitty-gritty bit, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Well, yeah, well, like we were talking about ahead of time, it's kind of a complicated question because it sort of depends. But like you also said, a lot of this stuff comes together in ways that I think, at least for me, haven't happened throughout my life. So, like you mentioned, I'm a stuntman. I'm a sport performance psychology consultant. I'm a faculty member at Grand Canyon University. I've written a book. I've got another one that I'm working on. I'm a dad. I'm a lot of different things, but for me, really, the intersection really lies at trying to help people perform their best consistently, particularly in high stakes situations where there tends to be pressure or where resilience is necessary, and really in a way that helps people build overall well-being. Because I think that that's fundamentally at the heart of what's really important for us as human beings. So whether I'm writing the book or whether well, I guess not so much with stunts, but more with the coaching and stuff is where that stuff applies. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey to get to where all of these things are each part of my day.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I already have so many questions about all of this, but I'm so curious when, the world of performance psychology, it is, I feel for me, relatively new, and I'm sure for other people listening as well. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what the nature of performance psychology is?
Yeah, it's just another name for sports psychology, and that's been around for, I mean, I guess probably officially since the 80s. I mean, sports teams started to hire
Mhm.
people. The Olympics have had sports psychology consultants working with them regularly. College teams, pro teams, I mean, it's ubiquitous in the athletic world, but it's not in the performance world. So it is relatively new in the singing, in the dancing, with the musicians, with stunt
Right.
people. In the performer world, this idea of having a psychology consultant to help you to perform is it's a new thing. And so really what it comes down to is this. There are a lot of different areas that I work with performers on, and it depends on what they have going on. So for example, some of the staples are confidence,
Mhm.
particularly performance anxiety related issues that may be stemming from confidence or even other things. Pressure, feeling pressure in situations, motivation. These are some of the big ones that come up, and so it really comes down to mindset. How are you approaching the
Mhm.
situation? Is it an opportunity or is it a threat? How are we training? Are we using mental imagery as well as we can? How are we managing and regulating both emotions and energy activation levels?
Mhm.
These are all things that are essential if we're going to go into a performance environment and do our best. And so that's really what my focus is as a sport performance psychology consultant is I talk to people who are having some trouble. Really, I mean, I guess that it can come in a lot of forms and they can express it in different ways. But what it comes down to is in that performance moment, they don't feel like they're doing their best, and they should be. In
Mhm.
other words, it's not a physical problem. It's not, it's not that they lack the skills to
Yeah.
do what it is. They've got the skills and they're physically capable, but for whatever reason in that performance environment, they don't feel like they're bringing all of who they are.
Mm.
And that's really where I can come in and help diagnose where those things may be that we can target to hopefully help that performance happen more consistently.
Mm.
As well as, when we're training, when we're learning, and this is very relevant for people who are doing live shows, especially, or really any kind of shows where there's a short rehearsal period where you have to pick up stuff very quickly, or
Yeah.
at an audition, for example, where you're having to
Mm.
learn a new combination really fast or something. So this idea of being able to learn more quickly and develop the skills a little bit faster, if we have this mental approach, this
Mm.
structure in place where we can make sure that we're staying focused, where we're attentive to what's going on, and that we keep the right mindset that we need in order to execute the way that we need to. We can both learn faster and we can perform more consistently. And
Mm.
that's really where I come in that world.
I love all of that. And as you were talking, all I was thinking is, I wish I'd had that in acting school. Someone to show up and share that piece with
Yeah.
me as a young performer.
Yeah, it's incredible. And there are some other areas too, I mean, for specifically related to auditions, one of the things that some people have problems with is not so much the audition itself, although some people do. There's a lot of anxiety and they don't feel like they're able to, but just because the situation tends to be very septic and not very natural or whatever it is, they
Yeah.
tend to have a hard time with that. And that's its own thing. But where a lot of people tend to have problems is afterward, because
Hmm.
typically, unless you get the job, you're not getting feedback on what happened. You may not get the job, but you don't know why you didn't get the job. Nobody's telling you. And it may simply
Right.
be because, you know what? The actor that you would be playing a part from is 6'2" and you're 5'2", and that just isn't going to work. So we're looking for
Yeah.
somebody a little bit taller. And that's it. So it has nothing to do with how you execute, or it might, but you
Right.
just don't know. And so at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what you have to do is let it go. And that letting
Yeah.
go is a very hard thing for people to do. It's one of the reasons I named my book what I did. It's called Begin Again.
Mm.
And that's really what we have to learn how to do so many times with every
Yeah.
every audition, every job. Jobs come and
Hmm.
go. I worked last week on a TV show called The Cleaning Lady,
Hmm.
and now it's done. I'm unemployed again. So it's time to
Right.
move on to the next thing. It's time to begin again. And that's that we have to be able to do that. And we have to be able to have that let go mindset, staying focused and present on what it is that's relevant right
Hmm.
now that can help us move in the direction we're going to go, rather than staying wrapped up in what happened in the past. And particularly when we don't even know. That's the hard
Right.
thing. When we make it
Yes.
up, our brains don't like ambiguity. And when we leave
Yeah.
audition, a lot of times there's ambiguity. We don't know. We don't even get a call. We don't even know that we didn't get the job until somebody tells us, "Oh yeah, I got that job." Oh, all right. Well, if you got it, I
I
didn't
guess
get
I
it.
didn't. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So yeah, so that's another big part. And then a third thing that really is, well, I guess two other things is, one is injury, being able to
Mm.
come back from injury, especially coming back to doing what you were doing when you got injured in the first place.
Yeah.
That can be a very challenging thing for people. And then also career transition.
Mm.
Usually for most performers, there's a time when it's over and we have to
Hmm.
transition to something else. We have to move to a different area. And when you've spent an entire lifetime defining yourself in terms of this one thing
Hmm.
that's taken so much of your time, energy, enthusiasm, passion,
Yeah.
and now you're moving to something else, it's that can be a challenging place too. So those are some of the areas that I target and focus on with performers.
That is amazing. And I know performers will benefit and do benefit from all of that. I'm curious, when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Mm. For me, creativity is just approaching things in my own way. I have my
Mm.
own
Yeah.
priorities, my own values, my own
Hmm.
set of what I care about and what I like to do, and
Hmm.
that's to me the creativity part. It's
Hmm.
taking a task or situation, and even, and this is something I've had to work with my daughter on too. She likes to act, and she's 11. But this idea of, okay, right over there, this picture there, that's where we're going. We're currently here. How do
Yeah.
we get from here to there? And then, and she'll come up with some kind of way, but I'm like, all right, well, what's another way? And what's
Hmm.
another way? And
Hmm.
but then start thinking about the extra different ways and different more I was going to say creative, but I'm defining creative, so I'm trying not to say that. But
Yeah.
just alternative ways to
Sure.
do what you need to do in order to get to that end state. And for me,
Hmm.
that's just a fun challenging process of
Mm,
trying to figure out what are some other options. If this one's not going to work, then what about this one? Or even if this one might work, I don't know. What's plan B? What's going to
yeah.
happen if it doesn't? What's another way that I can go after it? And so for me, that's what creativity is really just keeping an open, flexible mind
Mm,
that's able to take in a lot of different information and synthesize that information in unique
mhm.
ways to help us to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve.
I love all of that. And yes, the synthesizing ideas and having multiple options and avenues and ways to traverse the path, I think it can be super helpful. And I'm curious, in your life, what came first, stuntman or psychology? What was the chicken or
I
the
don't even.
egg, like
It's
what
funny.
was
It's
it?
funny that you say that. I would have. I mean, my knee jerk reaction to that is stuntman, but I don't
Yeah.
really know. It depends on how far you want to go back. Because
Yeah.
when I was in high school, I took drama, and I
Mm-hmm.
took psychology, and
Mm.
both of those things happened, and that's where I learned about each. And my
Yeah.
connection, the way I got started in stunts was I knew the company manager at the Batman stunt show at Six Flags in New Jersey, and I was
Yeah.
going to college at Rutgers. So I was able to get in and see the show and talk to the people. But I knew that guy because of my drama teacher in high school. So
Oh.
drama in high school is what launched the stunt career. And psychology, that psychology class in high school, I hated school. I hated every bit of it, all of it. I
Ah.
mean, I have a doctorate degree now. I've managed to figure it all out, but
You
you
liked
know,
it for some reason.
but back then I hated it. And but the psychology class I loved. It was
Yeah.
really, really interesting, the way that we perceive things and the way the mind works and
Hmm.
how we learn and how we interact with others and communicate and just all the different things. So there was a fire lit then, and I knew when I left
Mm.
high school going to college that I was going to major in psychology. I had no idea that I'd ever work in psychology. I didn't know what that was going to entail, but I knew that I
Hmm.
enjoyed the material and I could sit through the classes without throwing up. So that was what I was gonna major in, and that's what I did. So I don't know which came first. I really
Ah.
have no idea. They kind of emerged around the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the two passions in parallel experience that then crossed over in significant ways. I'm wondering when you think, like, what is your earliest memory of being creative?
Getting out of trouble with my parents. I remember I remember doing things I knew. In fact, I say the earliest memory, I took a box cutter that I was told I should not have at all,
Mhm.
and I took it anyway. And I went outside and I started sawing on a stick, and I ended up cutting my finger to the point where we had to go get stitches. And my parents asked me what I did, and I said, I don't know. The stick just so I was trying to create new ways to
Yeah.
get out of the trouble that I was in. And that was I remember scraping up the desk with a knife at one point, and my parents were like, "What happened?" I don't know. Maybe the cat did it. I have no idea. But
Creative
there's
improvements to the truth.
so yeah, yeah, stretching what was true. That's my first realm of creativity, I think.
That's amazing. Do you, and
And also, as much as I hate school too, getting out of school, I've been very creative in that area as well.
oh, I
Um,
bet.
oh yeah, no, and this kind of intersects with stunts too, because I'll tell you, I ran out of sicknesses at one point, so I had to get
Mm.
hurt, and so I fell down the stairs and acted like I'd hurt my ankle or something, and
Yeah.
and then I'd go to the doctor because I would rather be at the doctor than at school. Like that's how much I hated it.
Ah, oh
So.
my goodness. That very creative solutions to getting
Yeah,
yourself
right. Look,
out.
what's the end state? No school. All right. Well, how do we get there? Well, if I'm at the doctor, I'm not at school. So let's do that.
There you go. And the fact that it turned into a career of, I mean,
Well,
not getting out of things, but being able to sustain what
yeah.
appears to be injury. And
Started using the creativity for good instead of evil.
yeah,
Later
yes,
in life.
yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. What are some of your favorite ways to that, using the psychology part of the work that you do with athletes? Because I know you're big into the sports and how performance and sports intersect. And I know I because that's not my realm of psychology, it is a relatively new piece. And I think new to maybe the general public in terms of how psychology is used in the sports arena.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I said, it's used in a lot of different ways, and
Mhm.
in terms of, performers, the intersection really, I mean, the fact is, everybody's been in a situation where we know that we're capable of performing well, and we don't. And we
Mm.
recognize that our minds just aren't where it needs to be, or our attitudes aren't what they need to be, or
Mhm.
our emotions got out of control in different situations, and that affected our ability to be at our best. So we
Mhm.
recognize, I mean, it's a no-brainer to say that whether we're going to be successful or not, whether in athletics or performance, it's not just about our skill.
Mhm.
We also have to execute those skills in the
Sure.
moments where we need to. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of variables that go into dealing with that. And it also varies depending on whether we're talking about kids or adults. I work with both. I've worked with
Mm.
kids as young as 9. I've worked
Mhm.
with adults as old as 65 or 70, I mean,
Mhm.
it really, and it's a different thing because a lot of time, for example, one of the things that I hear from kids a lot is I'll just take swimming as an example, is there I'll work with, for example, a 16-year-old swimmer, junior in high school, trying to figure out if he or she is going to go to college and
Mhm.
swim in college, whether,
Mhm.
whether they're going to pursue the scholarship route and go do this thing. They've been in swimming for a decade or more at this point.
Mhm.
Parents have driven them all across the globe and have spent so much money on this whole thing.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that is a challenge for some of these kids is that they don't really want to. Their priorities have changed. They've
Yeah.
found other things that they enjoyed. They want to spend more time with their friends, which they hadn't done before, and they know they're going to leave their friends very soon.
Mhm.
They want to pursue other interests in college that and they know swimming is going to take up a whole ton of time and they'd rather spend that time in other ways, but they feel guilty
Mhm.
about telling their parents that they don't want to do that because all along the way their parents, oh yeah, you can get a scholarship, and the coaches are telling them, yeah, you can get a scholarship for sure and you can go, and they know that it's a money thing too, because not only have their parents spent money in the
Mhm.
past, if they don't get the scholarship to college, their parents are going to spend money in the future. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of angst around this idea of, who am I doing this for? What is this for me or is it not for me? What is the source of motivation that's driving this? And so in that's an area where there's a really cool intersection because
Mhm.
sometimes the kids are misunderstanding what's going on. Their perceptions are skewed because they
Mm.
think their parents care a lot about this stuff, but their
Yeah.
parents really don't. I mean, truly, most of the parents, if not, I mean, the vast majority of parents I've talked to, they just
Mhm.
want what's best for the kid. They're like, look, if he wants to swim, great, let him swim. If he doesn't want to swim, I don't want him to swim. Like that's
Mhm.
totally fine. So there's this shift of perspective that happens,
Mm.
that needs to happen during the work that we do together to help that kid see clearly what's happening and to communicate more effectively with the parent. So we're not
Mhm.
only talking about frame of mind and how we're understanding the world that we're living in, which is just an interesting concept in and of itself. I mean, you
Yeah.
and I being in the identical same situation could view it very, very differently. It could terrify you and
Absolutely.
could excite me.
Yeah.
It just depends. So getting people to see what's happening and to interpret it in a productive way and then communicate well with those around them, that's relevant again, not just for kids but for anybody. I mean, truly,
Mhm.
if we've ever been in a performance situation, we've all screwed up. We've all been in places where it didn't work, and we can identify exactly why. It was not my skill, it was not my physicality. I had the ability, I absolutely should have executed way better. So why didn't I?
Mm.
Something to do
Mhm.
with mind, emotion, etc. That's really where the intersection that I've found, and this has been very beneficial for me. Like I said, I worked last
Yeah.
week on this show. I fell 10 feet off of this boat, clipped a picnic table, went to the ground, and and for that kind of stunt, there's some a lot of energy. There's some
Mhm.
nervousness. There are some consequences there. Lou Diamond Phillips was directing the thing, and I love that guy. And so I'm like doing this in front of him, and so there's all this stuff around the consequences of the action.
Yeah.
And so for me, what was really interesting is because of this work that I do, and because of how into it and how intentionally and deliberately I pay attention to it, I noticed right away when my heart rate started to go up and when my
Mm.
muscle tension started to change and when my mind started to go to what if. And I
Yeah.
was able to pull it back. And this is while, I mean, this is before during the day while I'm just kind of wandering around stretching or
Hmm.
doing other things, leading up to the stunt.
Yeah.
But it was also while I'm standing on the boat, minutes from somebody saying action, and,
Yeah.
and and just recognizing, okay, where's my mind right now? Where's my body right now? Am I physically, mentally, and emotionally
Mhm.
in the place where I need to be? And not only that, but socially, there was another actor up there on the boat too, and he picked that time to say, "Oh, so what's the coolest stunt you ever?" Like he wanted to carry on a whole
Oh,
conversation. Like
jeez.
right now is not the time, but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't with you. You're a cool guy, and we've had some good conversations, and we'll talk later. But right now, I need to focus. So there's a social
Yeah.
component too of being
Hmm.
able to ensure that we're where we need to be, and that's true. I mean, for gymnasts, for ice skaters, for people,
Yeah.
in these individual sports. My daughter's a rock climber.
Mm.
They hang out with their friends in between, but then it's time to go. And if you can't disengage from your friends and then pull
Right.
yourself to where you need to be, that social component can be a problem too. So physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, are we where we need to be in order to execute to our potential? That's the kind of stuff that I help with.
I mean, I think anyone, everyone, whether you are involved in sports or not, would benefit from that. I see all the things you were talking about, setting boundaries, compartmentalizing, having the ability to come back into yourself, that awareness piece, and all of that is just so beneficial to anyone, any human on the
Yeah,
planet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing that up too, because that's something I bring up in discovery calls right off the bat with any client that I have is I'm like, look, I for an athlete, for example, if your goal, or there's probably a lot of performers listening. If it's a
Yeah.
performer, what's my goal? I want to get this job on this show, in this cast or whatever it is. Okay, great. How are you going to do that? Well,
Right.
I need to go to the audition. All right. Well, how are you going to get the audition? Well, I've got my agent. That's all going to happen. I'm going to make sure my picture's in the right place. I'm going to make sure that, once I do have the sides in place, I'm going to rehearse that. I'm going to have everything. Okay. So now we're talking about what we can actually do. That I
Right.
like.
Yeah.
But in terms of trying to set these goals and only the goals related to the performance itself or to the outcome itself, that can be a problem
Hmm.
because it keeps our focus on I just want to get the job. I want to get the job. I want to get the job rather than, okay, well, what do we need to do in order to help ensure that job, that you do get the job? Or
Right.
once you do have the job and you're going to execute, great. You want to go out and kill the performance. Terrific. We all do. What does that take? What do you need to do
Hmm.
right now in this moment? Like I was saying
Yeah.
before, that breath that I had to take, the muscle relaxation, the
Hmm.
awareness and the changes. What do I need to do? I need to spot my mark. I need to make sure my body turns a certain way. These are all things that I can do in that moment. And the bottom line is this: if I learn to do that in the performance environment, I can learn to do that everywhere. If I'm having a challenging conversation with a spouse,
Hmm.
if I'm disciplining a kid, if I'm taking a test, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where I am. If I'm having, whatever's going on, I can make sure that I'm aware of how I am
Hmm.
and put myself into a position to where hopefully I will act and behave and just handle that situation as productively as I can. And I let them know all up front. Look, this sport, this performance, this dance, this music thing, we will practice and learn and gain proficiency with these
Hmm.
skills in this environment. But just know that what you learn here, what you practice here, can be applied everywhere and you will see benefit for sure.
Yeah. That transferability
Yeah.
is so important. And yeah, I'm curious. You strike me as someone who has a lot of inspiration in your own life, but who or what inspires you these days?
Who or what inspires me? Well, there's there's a guy named Doug Coleman who is a second unit director, stunt coordinator. If you look him up on IMDb, you'll see the guy's he's a legend in this world. He's done everything. And Doug, he's 70 years old, 71 now. He's also been a magician for,
Hmm.
a little amateur magician. He does magic, but he's just in the last few years, I guess, started doing some magic shows. At 70 years old, now he's doing some magic shows. Still running these huge movies,
Yeah.
that are whatever. But he's on set doing magic, and then when he's not doing the movies, he's doing these little magic shows at parties or wherever. And to me, and later today at 2 o'clock, what about 3 hours? He and I are gonna get on this on FaceTime or
Mhm.
whatever, how we do it, and then we're gonna magic each other. and that's what we're gonna do, you know. So I've got some cards, and I do some things, and he does some stuff. But the fact that the guy, he never quits learning. He loves
Mhm.
creativity. He loves bringing out. He doesn't even want to learn anything anybody else has done. He just wants to get stuff and figure out a new way of doing it, figure out his own thing, and then go
Yeah.
perform it. His audience isn't even the lay people. His audience is magicians. He's been a member of the
Mm.
Magic Castle in LA for 30 years, I think. His
Mhm.
goal is to go in there and fool those people. And
Mm.
that's what inspires me is Doug, he's achieved so much in so many areas throughout
Mhm.
the 7 decades he's been alive, but he's not done. He's still
Yeah.
going in all different areas. And I love that. I love it.
What an incredible human to have in your community and someone who is living their life in a way that is so inspiring and also so creative to say like I'm not done yet. There's still more I want to do and here's what I'm doing today. Tomorrow
Yep.
it could be different. Yeah. For you, what are those kind of new exciting ideas or things that you have going on in your own life?
Oh, well, there are a whole bunch because I've just gone through a rebrand with my business. I was just doing sport performance psychology stuff, but now I'm doing keynote speaking. I'm working on developing some classes with these programs that I have on pressure, motivation, and a four-phased approach to performance, all of which that you can check out on the website, brianhiteglobal.com is where you can find all that. But I'm working on getting all that stuff going. I have a new book on pressure that I'm trying to put out and figure out how that's going to go. I have a TV show that I'm trying to figure out too. I think I'm just going to start with a YouTube channel that I'll start shooting some stuff with on January. But just a show around what like just pick somebody with a job that has pressure, that typically experiences
Yeah.
pressure, and I'm gonna just want to interview them and talk to them about, well,
Mm,
okay, so what are the challenges that you face, and how do you deal with them, and what are some strategies, and just kind of
hmm.
parse that in a lot of different industries, so that the general public, again, that transferability, that generalizability of all these things. Here are some strategies that if you hadn't tried them yet in your world, maybe you can, and
Mm.
really that's where I'm going with that show. I'm hoping that, again, after I don't know how long it'll take of shooting some things on YouTube before I get a producer to bite on that, but
Yeah.
that's another area that I'm really excited about trying to get started with.
Nice. Oh, well, that sounds amazing. And so many people are navigating pressure in so many different industries that I'm sure it will be very easy to find people to talk to in that
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that
And
place.
the thing is, it's any kind of, I mean, Thanksgiving just happened. I don't know where you were, but where I was, there was pressure on the
Yeah.
people cooking the things. So it doesn't even have to be parents trying to get one kid to dance and the other one to soccer. There
Yeah.
can be pressure that's there around, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? If they don't do this, the consequences are going to be so bad and so
Hmm.
whatever. So it's not even just a performance environment, certainly not just a sport environment.
Yeah.
Pressure exists all over the place. And if we have some strategies to, number one, recognize it, number two, adjust the way that we're thinking in that
Mm.
situation and how our attention is focused, man, big results can happen. And not the least of which is just higher levels of overall well-being. It's miserable feeling pressure.
Mhm.
So if we can
Yeah.
handle it and deal with it, man, we're just happier and we're easier to be around, and and the people, our spouses and loved ones will be happy about that too. Because
Exactly.
yeah.
So true. I mean,
Yep.
in hearing you work with so many different individuals from different arenas, for individuals who struggle to kind of tap into their creativity, how would you encourage them to find more creativity in their life?
Mm. Well, I mean, some of it can be situation specific. So, I don't know if we're talking about a writer or, or a dancer or, I mean, truly a mathematician. I mean,
Yeah.
creativity comes in a lot of different forms. So I would just say, just what do you want? Like, close your eyes and just see
Mm.
what's possible, not what is, but what could be. And
Mm.
just think about, like, or even, another approach might be to just start taking some notes around
Mm.
what do you see during the day that could be different? Where are things that are just wrong? For example, stop signs. Stop signs are stupid. There should not be any stop signs. They should all be yield signs, which is a sign that says, look, stop if you need to. If you don't, just keep on going. Why isn't every sign that? So, So just walking through the world and recognizing where are some of the holes? Where are some of the
Mm,
things that people just haven't quite figured out yet? And then try to figure out some different ways of getting after it. You know,
yeah.
there really are so many different ways to practice creativity. And another way too is to recognize when you have a problem. This is one of the
Mm,
benefits of mental imagery that I don't think a lot of people use. I think mental imagery, visualization, mental practice goes by a lot of names, but
mhm,
I think that it gets used a lot for skill development and for
mm,
skill practice. So, for example, if I'm a dancer and I need to learn choreography on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6, and like I can go through that in my head using mental imagery, and it's great for that. It truly is.
mhm.
But there are many other uses. I mean,
Yeah.
we can put together, synthesize all of those things into a flow. We can boost confidence. We can deal with motivation. We can practice handling anxiety, and we can problem solve. We
Mm,
can run through
mhm.
different possible solutions, different scenarios in our mind. We don't actually have to interact with the world. We can do it in our heads. And
Yeah.
and that's a great way to practice creativity as well.
Oh, I love those tips and tools. That's amazing. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have one last question.
Uh-huh.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Light. It feels
Mm.
it feels light. It feels airy, you know? That's what it feels like. Like I'm just kind of moving around, flowing, like everything's just sort of there's no weight.
I
It's all
love
just
it.
floating.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And if people want to learn more about the work you do, your book, all of the other things, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, my website's brianhiteglobal.com, BrianHite global.com. And the book is Begin Again, Utilize the Wisdom of Eastern and Western Ideologies to Achieve Your Full Potential. And that's just a series of 183 essays. They're really short reads, 2, maybe 3 minutes, designed with, look, here's a problem a lot of us face. Here's some information
Mm,
about it. And here are some strategies or tools or things you might be able to think about and benefit from if you try them out. So that's the way that's organized. You can get that on Amazon.
mhm,
And if you ever have any questions, like truly, if this is something that anything that I've spoken about resonates. I mean, if you've ever been crippled by pressure or struggled with motivation or been overwhelmed by big performances and you don't have anybody to really walk you through that as a
mhm,
mentor, check out the website, check out some of the programs, and just shoot me a line. I mean, you can email me, brian@brianhiteglobal.com, or you can schedule a discovery call right on the website. I'm happy to talk to you. I know that those things are really hard. I've been through all of them, and
mhm.
and I love helping people with them. So please reach out. I'd love to speak with you.
Wonderful. Well, I'll put links in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
I have too. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.